So
yeah.
take
I
two.
just thought I don't want to spend the rest of my life. I've seen the world now. I've been around, got some experience. I've got my master's ticket. Well, I was coming up to my master's ticket, and I thought I'll carry on and do it, and then have some time with it. So a year before I decided to leave, I took the examination and passed, and went back to sea. And I had a word with the superintendent of the shipping line, who I was in good terms with, and I told him I was considering this, and he said, "Well, you've got a bright future ahead. Why don't you do relief work? That means you just take ships, when they come into port, get them unloaded, past any examinations, Lloyd's and things like that, and get the cargo loaded while the crew are on leave, you see, and do that sort of thing." Okay. I tried it, but it was even worse. Oh, it was awful. Just taking on ships and doing them and sending them off. And I thought, this is crazy. So he said, "Okay, we'll make you chief officer London." So I only did ships in London. Yeah. And I did that for a couple of months, and then I said to him, "No, really, I'm leaving."
So what did that entail when you were doing you were working for what shipping line?
Oh, the shipping line was called, the ships were Paddy Henderson. Yeah. But they were contracted out to Elder Dempster. Elder Dempster. Okay. Were very strong in West Africa, down the west coast of Africa.
And where would you take the ships from and to then, when you were doing this work?
Well, when I started, when he asked me to start doing it, I would fly to, say, Hamburg or Amsterdam and unload a cargo there. And if the ship had to come to London, I'd take her around to London, load her up there, and have her ready for the crew to take off. Because the trips it was a line, so running to a schedule. It took 3 months.
And what were those early planes like you were taking over to go over to the continent?
Pardon?
What were those early planes like? Aeroplanes like?
Aeroplanes?
You said you were flying over to the continent and then bringing a ship back.
Yeah. Just planes were sort of. I'm not talking about 46. I'm talking about 55, 56.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and also, if it was, say, Amsterdam, I'd go Hook of Holland. That's from Harwich.
Yeah. Okay, so you had enough of that, and then what next?
I put in inquiries with the Ministry of Labour, and they gave me a lot of leads. I said I was looking for management training to go into industry, and I attended quite a few, but didn't like them. I got one, which would make you laugh. It was the National Mutual Life Assurance Company, to be a branch manager. Yeah. So I had this appointment, and up in Moorgate, that's where they all are in one sort of area, just like the banks. And I went up there, and it was a full day. We had exams in the morning, which were basically English, maths, and geography and all the rest of it. And then that weeded out some. We went for lunch and came back, and they said, "Oh, you've been successful, welcome on board." And so on, so they said, as a branch manager, you obviously have no experience of insurance, so you have to know how to sell insurance. And they said, "So there's your desk. There are no hours. You just do it what hours you like. But your area is London Transport bus depots." So he said, "You go along there when the crews are coming back at night before they clock off, and you catch them then."
Yeah.
And I was totally nonplussed by this. I thought, in those days, we used to have fogs, terrible fogs, because there was a lot of smoke around. So
Yeah.
London used to have thick, thick pea soup fogs. And these poor drivers would be driving for 8 hours through London fog. They come there. I just couldn't see myself going up and selling insurance to them at
Yeah.
11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and things like that, and following it up and so on. So I came home very disappointed, talked over my mother and father, and phoned them in the morning and said, no thanks, it's
Yeah.
not for me. Interesting thing though, because I spoke to Bob Folks, our sales manager at Hagel Products, about it one time. I said, they said this. And Bob said, they're absolutely right. I said, why? He said, because the resistance is the lowest then. That's when you sell it to them. I said, I couldn't do that. I couldn't sleep at night if I did that. He said, well, that's what selling is. So, I wasn't cut out for that one. I
No.
went to a job in a freight forwarders because I knew about freight forwarding and documents, the documentation to do with
Yeah.
export and imports. And that was really funny because the chap wasn't there when I came in. They said, oh, he's gone for dinner. Sometimes it runs a bit late. And this dolly bird was sitting there and she had rings this size all around. She had lipstick all up here. She bangles, you name it. She was really. And every door she opened, you could hear bottles clinking. And this guy came in and he was already well oiled. And he had a cigar in his mouth and sat down and put his feet up and said, oh, yeah, and so on. And oh, yeah, you do fine. I said, well, I'll have to think about it. I'd already thought. I said, no, thanks. Eventually, I got an offer from a really good company, and it was called something Holdings. Anyway, I'll get it for you in a minute. But they were in the centre of London, and they were a conglomerate, and they had umpteen companies all over the UK, including shipbuilding, sweet confectionery, transport company, instrument screw company, small electric motors, loads of different, about 50 companies, a big conglomerate. And they gave me an interview, and I got an offer from them to start as a management trainee. And when I went back up there, they said, well, we'd like to send you to our latest acquisition, which is TSP at Brighton. TSP stood for Typewriter Sundries. So Typewriter Sundries had been owned by a Jewish gentleman, and he had actually been in London for a while, but he did something, I can't remember what it was, but it fell foul of the law anyway, and he had to sell his company. And this Grafton Management, Grafton. And so I got this job and went as a management trainee to them. They took me on, and I went into this factory in Brighton, which was state of the art. It was a beautiful, beautiful factory. It had parquet flooring in the offices, it was something. Great big marble entrance with flowers always out there. It was a lovely place to work, and a garden in the middle, It later became the police headquarters at Hollingbury. Anyway, I got that, and it included working there as a management with they had consultants that they placed with all their companies. It would be a mechanical engineering, a cost accountant, a financial accountant, people like that. And they sent them to all the companies to assist all the companies to improve, So I had them to fall on, for advice about things. But I got enrolled with Brighton Technical College on a course of British Institute of Management. So I started there. I left the ship in November 1956 and joined TSP in January 1957. I was directly responsible to the managing director, who was Colonel Nixon, Colonel in the Guards, who lived in London and who came down on the electric train from London, the Brighton Bell, to an hour from Brighton to them. And the chauffeur was down there with his car waiting for him. He arrived in about 10 o'clock and left about 4 each day. He was, although he was the managing director, he was also the sales director. His role in the company was to get orders from the big companies, and he had lots of contacts. So, you know, when we joined the company, they made spares for typewriters and business machines. Before you got computers, used to be mechanical devices with lots of little gears and things like that.
Oh, yeah, mechanical. Yes.
Huh?
Mechanical adders.
Yes.
They were calculators, weren't they?
Yeah, and you know, had lots of little gears and things on them. But precision, really highly precision stuff, you know, to how. And so it was a nicely equipped company with really good equipment, really nice offices, really nice facilities all round. And I was responsible to him. His secretary was an ex-Wren officer. That's a Women's Royal Naval officer, you know. And she was really great. She really was. Anyway, I started at night school while I was getting all this training, but working as well, doing things. I was putting in a production control scheme, which involved, it used to take approximately 3 months to make an IBM. This is the new stuff that the company had brought in, which they hadn't done before. This was computers. IBM had come to Britain and was setting up the factory in Spangle Valley in Greenock, a big factory. It was the first computers coming to this country. And we won the contract for the card sorting machines because, as well as the computer, in the early days of punch cards, you needed loads of these card sorting machines, which would process the cards in different ways to give you different information. You know, they had holes punched on them, which could be read in different ways, like, you know, but they were very, very fast. So these were precision machines about this size, you know, from the ground they were up like that, and you would feed a load of that zigzag computer paper in, you know, about this thing, and it would, you know, really mow it through a hell of a rate. And that's what we made for IBM. We continued to make for the other people like Underwood Typewriters and Royal Typewriters in Holland. They do their precision work, which was their type. We made the you know, the type that comes down on the pattern. We made the platen, and you know, it's metal with very special hardness rubber, and you know, these were special presses which, if you want to get a sharp indent for print, you have to move the metal. So when the top tool in a press comes down, it wiggles. You know, so as it comes down, it does a wiggle like that, which shoots the material up inside. And
how long were you at that company for?
I joined in 57 and I left in 60. And it was very good. I got up and running the production control system. That worked fine. We were able to give accurate deliveries to people when they were going to get the stuff. I had a staff of 4, and they would, you know, had these little pegboards right the way
Oh, yeah.
around, and
Yeah.
lots of little pegs in turned that way or this way if it's stopped, and there's things to say that the tool's broken down. I have to go onto that, chase the tool up and get it back into production, so on. So that all worked well. And I also put in a new store for raw materials and a store for tools, so that when a tool broke, it didn't go to the tool room, it went straight into this place where it was logged. And then it was called for by the tool room when the capacity to do it. And we set the priorities and which were which to get them back to keep lines going. That was successful, and sorting out the tools was successful. There's loads of things like that.
And did you enjoy that sort of work?
Pardon?
Did you enjoy that work?
I enjoyed it tremendously. Yeah, I was single and I just lived in digs, so I used to work all sorts of hours. I'd go in at 9, didn't go in at 8, go in at 9, but I happily worked to 8 o'clock at night. If I was doing something. But I had 2 nights a week at night school, the 3-hour sessions, doing the intermediate course in business management.
What did you do at the weekends?
What did I do at the weekend? Well, I used to get in my car and drive back up to Mill Hill to my parents. They lived in Mill Hill in North London.
Yeah.
So I used to. Do you ever remember going there?
No.
Too young?
Too
We
young.
used to take you up there to Gran and Grandpa. Yeah. And I used to go up there. I was a member of the Mill Hill Lawn Tennis Club. So I'd spend my weekend up there and playing tennis much of the time. I would come down on a Monday morning. I used to get up early and drive down to Brighton. But I'd get on the M23 and open up my car to about 90 because there was no restriction then. You could go as fast as you like. So that's yeah.
And why did you
I had
leave that?
I had a flat that was there all the time, but I only used it in the middle of the week.
And why did you decide to leave that company?
Well, what actually happened to them was, and this happens with big companies, it taught me a lesson, which I never had to use because I was never in charge of sales, but I was sales office, but not sales, marketing. And that is, you don't get too much of your business in the hands of any one customer. It's pretty fair, and I was able as a director of Hagel to stop Bob Folkes, when he was sales manager, of getting us to supply British Mail Order and Mothercare when they came and demanded to have sole rights to a product, or British Mail Order wanted us to do all the wire work. Well, that would have taken all the capacity, and we would have been in the hands of someone else. We wouldn't have been deciding our own future. So we had to stand up to these people, and that was due to my experience with IBM, because IBM looked terrific business. We were on to it, we're producing good products, and it was all going fine. And they got a delay in the factory, setting up their new factory, and they were months behind. And we were left with, a lot of money, tens of thousands of pounds worth of tools and capacity, and couldn't produce. And we couldn't get stuff. We tried to get Ford of Dagenham used to make tractors, and we tried that, we did their gearbox for the tractor. They are really terrible. You get this stuff and you put it on a vehicle and go up there and they say, no, bring it back tomorrow. You can't keep doing that. The money just goes flying out the door.
Okay, so why did you decide to leave the company then? What was the catalyst?
Because its future, it was going down the pan.
Okay, and where did you then move to?
Hagel Products at Bognor.
Okay.
By this time, of course, what had happened is, it's funny, but when you went in the office, the first office on the left-hand side was the accounts department. That was where your mother worked. I was down at the bottom of the corridor, near the opposite end of it. So, I would have seen her and passed her, but I'm like this normally, if I'm doing something, that's it. I didn't see it. It was 1950. Christmas 1958. It was the Christmas do at the works. In those days, you worked Saturday mornings, but to tell you what happened, used to work for the morning, but after that, and a really good, beautiful dinner, which all the managers, including myself, served the people rather than go up and stand in a line, you know. So, and they started talking to me as I was giving the dinners out, and they were joking with me and so on. And the dancing started, and we were finished. And I asked your mum to dance, up and dance. And well, she was a fantastic dancer. I mean, she really was a very good dancer, and she had a diploma, you know, in dancing, master's diploma. And I, you know, we just spent the rest of the time dancing, having a drink. And it came to about 5 o'clock at night. And in those days, you know, I get into my car to drive to Mill Hill.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd had a good bucket.
Yeah.
And I drove your mum. She wanted to be dropped off at the clock tower at Brighton. So I drove her there, dropped off, and we arranged that we'd meet up on the 5th or something like that after Christmas. So I went off up to London at Christmas, came back, met your mum. Her dad had died in the meantime. He was an old man. Yeah, he was very old. Anyway.
Just over that Christmas break?
Pardon?
Just over that Christmas, he died then, had he, between the Christmas?
I think he died in the 1st or something like that. I can't remember.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, so your mum and I started going out, and we got involved too with the running the social club. The managing director had asked me to become a sordid place where people had affairs.
Yes.
So he said, could I do something about it? So I did. I arranged at the meeting that all of us just arrived at this meeting that no one went to, and voted me in. And I voted them in, and so on. We just took over, and we cancelled the contract with the dodgy bar and the room above, and got a nice place. We spent some time, Val and I, going around looking at places for it, but we found a place, and it was very good. It was in the Drove, and lovely hotel, and we bought things like table tennis and things like that, and we used to have good fun there. So we did that, and when the Winter Weather came along, we started. We did stool ball, and then we did tennis. We played quite a bit of tennis, and we both liked tennis. I had a flat overlooking Preston Park, nice big flat. Anyway, by April, my birthday, I knew your mum was for me. So I proposed to her, and she accepted, and we set the date of August the 2nd. 1959?
Yes. 1959, yes.
Hang on. Having said that, we were in Brighton, of course, at this time, right? And so August 1959, we got married.
Yes.
And you came along the 2nd June the next year.
Yes.
That was very quick, wasn't it?
Was.
And we moved from. I got this job at Hago Products, or Hall and Golding, it was called then. I got that job, and that were, although I applied for it as production controller, they had in mind making me factory manager. And I did, within a few months, I was factory manager, and then I was production manager, and then I was production director, and then I was works director, and then I was commercial director. And that was 33 years with Paul Golding
Paul
in
Golding.
Bolton. But so we moved to Central Avenue in Bolton,
Yes.
and that was the outskirts of the town at that Bolton. Then Shawcroft Lane was the country.
Yes.
There was just a farm up there, which is now flats and things like that, but or a care home or something like that. And yeah, we had Fiona there. And by the way, we had a dog. We had a collie dog,
Yes.
which we'd got in Brighton before we moved.
Called Earl.
Yeah, yeah. And I was very, very pleased. I had this garage with a pit, so you could get into it and work on the car. I had sold my car to get married because she didn't have any money, and I didn't have money. Oh, I had a little bit, about 500, I think. It did the wedding, but we needed more money, so I sold the car and used that money for, the furniture and so on. So we came to Bolton, and in 3 years later, we moved to down the road. And
what was your first flat like in Brighton, and where was it?
Oh, it was lovely. It's no longer there, son, but it was a big Victorian house, with really high ceilings.
Can you remember the address?
No, but I'll tell you, it was about the 6th house up from coming from Brighton. You go through on the London Road, you go under an arch with the railway line, and you turn right there, and there's the park. And if you would then come up, there'd be about the 6th house up, big house. So there'd be 4 flats in it, but they were big flat. I mean, my flat had kitchen, bathroom, toilet, and lounge bedroom. Big one. Underneath, I had an ex-actress, and she used to have the people back from the Palladium in Brighton, and I would have them somewhere in about 2:30 in the morning. She had a grand piano in her flat.
Yeah.
They all started singing, "There's no business like show business," like, and she'd see me in the morning and say, "Bob, a cigarette hanging out of her mouth and her dressing gown on." Hello, she'd run out of milk. Can you get any milk? Or sugar or anything? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. So when you were first married, did you move? Were you living in your original flat?
Pardon?
When you were first married, were you living in your original flat?
No.
Oh, you'd moved out of your flat to a separate flat with Mum.
We bought. That. Selling the car gave us a deposit. Yeah, the house cost £2,100. No, £2,500. So put down 250.
Yeah.
And that was from the car sales, you see.
Yes.
And it was a semi-detached with it didn't have a garage, but it had a nice big driveway, concreted. And it was a 2-bedroom, for your bedroom, your first bedroom, and our bedroom upstairs, and a bathroom toilet.
And then you moved to Central Avenue.
I did a huge amount of work in it. I put in a new boiler, a new fireplace, new kitchen, all the floor in the kitchen, all new units.
The flats or Central Avenue?
No, in the first house there.
Oh, the first house.
The first house. We bought it. We got the key on the Friday for my wedding on the Saturday.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And all my relatives, including all aunts and uncles, and my cousin with his bagpipes who played it, they hired a bus and came down. So there's 40 of them came down from Scotland, and so we had to get up early and clean out so that they could come in and change from their stuff into their wedding clothes.
The best stuff, yes.
Yeah. And likewise, at night, after the wedding, which we had at the Red Lion Hotel, which is the big restaurant pub on the right. That's where we got married. You know, we got married in the church, but I had the reception there.
Yes.
Yeah, my cousin played the pipes to bring us in, and my nearest cousin, Alan Beaton,
Yeah.
he was my best man. Unfortunately, we don't have any pictures because your mother's mother, who was a real... Anyway, she said that she would attend to it. But we have no pictures because it turned out it was a bus conductor that she knew,
Yes.
who it was a hobby. He liked taking pictures, but he didn't. He didn't come to it. He got cold feet and didn't turn up.
Oh well.
So I have no picture. I only have other people's pictures that he took.
Yes. Yeah. Oh well.
Anyway.
And then you moved to Central Avenue, and you were there for what? Four years?
Three and a bit. Yeah, 3 and a bit years. Yeah.
Yeah.
61, 65. Yeah, it must have been nearly 4 years. We moved in 1965, in January 1965.
Yeah.
And Adrian came along in July.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
what made you pick Downview Road? Can you remember did you look at other places?
Oh yes, and it was brand new. It was a very modern. It was the last house that the developers built in Downview Road. It was unmade up. The road was just a son, and we paid £1,000 odd. Oh, no, it was 750, I think it was, for the getting the grass verges done, lights and everything, and road tarmac. But it was the last house, and there was a show house. They'd used it as a show house for all the other houses. So it had got quite badly worn parquet flooring. I had to do that before we moved in. And there was a garden which was overgrown. So, you know, but they were, I can't remember what they were asking, but I know it only cost me 5,250. That was, and I sold it for 80-odd thousand later. But the thing was that the previous house was 3,300. The first house that we bought was 2,500, and I made 1,000 on it in 1 year by the improvements I made to it. Yeah.
And you were there for most of your married life then? Well, a large chunk of it.
Just a year, that's all, yeah. It was lovely because it was just next to the Downs, and we could go out with the dog onto the Downs, and it was just across the Downs to our work. Yes,
and of course, Downview Road, of course, had the golf club at the top, which you like to go to.
Yeah, but I didn't. My colleague at work, Les Jones, who was the previous works director, he had been the professional at Goodwood before the war. He didn't go back to golfing. He came into industry, but he was the captain of Goodwood Golf Club, and he said, "Come along and get some lessons." So I enrolled with the professional there and had lessons there and played that. It's a lovely course, but of course I was now living at Downview Road. I'd started in Central Avenue, which is fine, but all my friends in Round Table were at. And it only costs, I think it was £5, or perhaps it's £56 a year, something like that. I mean, it's 1,000 odd now.
And Round Table used to be a large part of your life, you know, Round Table and then Rotary.
Well, once a week, and at the weekends, it was for under 40s. It's like Rotary, but for young people. And we did lots of work. I remember taking people when I was chair of the social committee, the services committee, and that's service to the community. I took all the patients at a place in Alwick Road that were multiple sclerosis.
And, Ashley House, Dad?
Yeah, Ashley House.
Yes.
I took them all. I was very annoyed because when it came to the date and everyone was for it, they were all doing other things. And I had to get some of my employees to drive the vehicles because we had all these people in ambulances, you know, we had to get up because we'd written and got permission to go to Buckingham Palace. They'd reserved a place for us at the entrance there for us. They just drove up and the police helped us get everybody out. And so they saw the changing of the guard. And then we got the vehicles back around, got them on and took them to London Airport. And again, London Airport gave us Queen's Building with the lifts up so we could get them up onto the roof by the cafe so they could see the planes coming in and out. And honestly, they just never wanted to go home. You know, it was dark when we left there, but it was well worthwhile because some of them had never been out, son. But we did jobs like we did things like if a couple were in hospital or something, I would say the man was in hospital and the woman wasn't fit for it, and the garden was getting overgrown. People would tell us about it, and we'd go along there with, you know, and about 12 of us descend on it on a Saturday morning and, you know, cut the grass and trim it all, get it tidy and take all the rubbish away. Things like that.
And there was the annual Donkey Derby at West.
Donkey Derby we arranged, yeah, at the West End car park. And we had, what was a famous star I saw him the other day. It was really nice too. Yeah, we used to do the fete, as it was, yeah.
Yes. And then you did Rotary, and then you got into being a magistrate.
Magistrate, well, I was leaving church one evening, and Pat Beanie, who was an accountant in Bognor Regis, in the road beside his offices were just behind beside the Roman Catholic Church there in Clarence Road. He came to me and said, "Could I have a word with you?" And he said, "Have you ever thought of being a magistrate?" I said, "No." Me? And he said, "Well," he said, "Give it some thought, Bob, because I think you would make a good magistrate." I said, "Oh, okay." So I thought about it. I said, "Well, it's not really me. I can't see me. I'm not that sort of guy, you know." But he came back to me and he had a chat with me and he said, "Come on, come along and meet the selection group." So I went along and saw them, and they put me, you know, asked me all sorts of different questions and said, "We think we'd like to offer you, you know, to be a magistrate." So I was sworn in at Chichester. I can't remember the date now, but it's on the glasses and things I was given when I left. I became a chair of the family court. So I did normal crime, but I didn't do the juvenile courts. I never did that. I did that and found it extremely interesting. I thought, this is something I could really have got my teeth into if I'd thought about it earlier, because I really found it extremely interesting, because law's changing all the time. There's so much training to do because laws are being repealed and others are being looked at, and, you know, to improve the law and so on, and things happen. You've got quite a lot to do, and it was fairly disorganized when I went. You know, it was when I went, it was a case of mainly sitting with them and gaining experience then. But I did get some training, but it wasn't a lot. And you know, it's they do a lot of much more training now. And by the time I left, of course, I was chair of the chairmanship training, selecting magistrates to chair. You know, you sit as free, and only one magistrate is in control. The others just contribute through the chair. It's like a little committee, like the juror, leading juror, like, you know. And you haven't got to know a huge amount of law, because you have lawyers there in court for you, you know, for the clerks.
Yes.
The clerks. And they have their tools if they're in doubt at all. You know, they have these big tools to look at it, or ask for a recess while they look at appointment law. And then they would advise us. And you have guideline sentences for different things, different you know, which is very interesting to go into when you get into it. I found it really good. The only thing I got annoyed about, and I was able to stop it, was we used to go around checking out pubs to see if they were adhering to the law. But we did it on an afternoon, and we gave them 2 weeks arrangement before that to say we were coming. And it was just like having you know, I had a busy workplace, I had jobs to do, and I just resented going out there and being all jolly with them. And I think this is all. So at the meeting, I said, I really don't think this is the right thing to do. I think we should be unannounced. You know, if you're going to check whether something's going, you should just go unannounced. You know, you just go and you say, could I speak to the landlord, please? And you just go round with it. And that's what it changed to. So instead of being a sort of nice day out with 3 or 4 magistrates all having afternoon tea and someone in a pub, you know, we got it. We just did it randomly. And especially if we heard that there was young people drinking, we'd go to a pub, walk in there, unannounced, and just go straight in and ask for the landlord. You don't do anything now. We just go around now. You haven't got that notice up that you by law you're required to do. So that's got to do, and we'd give them a proper report. But I don't think that's done now. I think Arran District Council, the District Council has taken over responsibilities for that now.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that it got very bad towards the end with the fragmentation of the penal system, whereby you would have one company operating the prison vans and other people operating either a state prison or a private prison. And if you had someone, say at 4 o'clock at night, and you'd been on the case and there had been, you know, a case tried, and you come up, you had to check before you come out and announce your decision, especially if it was you were sending them to prison. You had to come back at 4 o'clock, no later than 4, and tell the clerk, and they would then phone around to find out if they could get him accepted at a prison and a van to take him there.
All right.
Yeah, it got silly. And also they withdrew police from the courts. And we had intimidation once with travellers who had taken money from an old lady in Pagham, said they were going to do her trees, started by saying, oh, the vehicle needed petrol, so need money for the petrol. And then they come back and they were walking into her house in the kitchen, and then, you know, they just took over and, you know, made a mess of the place and spent thousands of pounds. And the court was held in court 2, and there was no police, and it was blocked out with travellers. They filled the whole damn place, and they were quite intimidating. And this is the thing too, the travellers are well enough, you know, got enough money to employ counsel. That's barristers.
Yes.
You got a barrister for this guy standing up, and this lady was 90 or something.
Yes. And
she says she was a little bit hard of hearing. But this guy made a big thing about shouting at her, but not shouting, just shouting, raising his voice, shouting it angrily so that he was intimidating her. And I had to stop the trial once I called in the clerk and said, they're not allowed to intimidate, harass witnesses.
Yes.
He says, yes. He said, the problem is, I think he knows that, and he wants to have this trial put off. He says, so if you, I said, but we can't let this go. We will have to make the point. He's not going to be allowed to harass. It's against the law. He said, yes, I agree. So I come into court and asked him to stand up, the barrister, and said to him that he's not allowed to do that. Would he please refrain from doing it again? She may be hard of hearing, but you don't have to be angry about it. Just raise your voice. You don't even have to look at her. But he did it again.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to the clerk, right, you know, I've warned the solicitor again. You know, I think he should be reported, and we have to stop this trial. Unfortunately, it meant that they got away with it because the trial was called off. Because of her experience, the witness wasn't willing to come before the court and be mauled again. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to stop the recording as well because we've run out of time.
Oh, so, right. Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right.
That's okay.
Time goes by, doesn't it?
It does.
Anyway, nice to see you all well.